All right. This is the interrupted and reestablished SIG Auth meeting for Wednesday, July 11th. We apologize for all the confusion, and hopefully this recording will serve as a permanent record of our confusion and recovery from it. So, all right. There was just a single item on the agenda, which was to discuss this continuation update to the plan for Kubernetes secrets. So with that, I will hand it over.
I know we've had a couple of discussions. I think the last real plan was the plan that was shared in May of last year. That was written by Greg Castle. So looking at the doc that Greg shared.
Hey, Maya, you're really quiet. Any chance you can talk closer to the microphone?
Tim, is that better?
Yes.
Brilliant. Yep. So this is a doc that was shared by Greg Castle last year around what our plan for secrets in Kubernetes should be. And then looking at that doc and updating it for a year later, what could we do going forward? It's not at all what we're committing to doing, but what could we do given the changes that have happened in the last 12 months? Some of the key principles that Greg had outlined around encryption, for example, haven't significantly changed in that we've added database encryption layer options as of 1.7 and KMS plugins as of 1.10, but secrets are still not encrypted by default. A mutual auth hasn't significantly changed. Least privilege has improved. Auto logging has significantly improved. There's still no rotation functionality. Then we've added some additional things that we'd like to consider, such as time-limited access or revocation. Usability hasn't significantly changed around having a consistent API, version management, etc. This is a long document. It's linked to from the SIG Auth agenda. So please take a look if you haven't taken a look yet. What I really want to discuss was kind of what we could do going forward. And I know for those seeing this for the first time, that's a bit hard to do. There is a HashiCorp Vault KMS plugin that I think KK from Oracle is working on. So I believe that should be published shortly. Yeah. And then we talked about possibly doing, moving that KMS plugin to beta, updating some of the other kind of external store auths, etc. I think some of the major design decisions we need to make are: do we want to have a way of natively, do we want to build a more full-featured secret management solution into Kubernetes? I posit that the answer is no, and that rather we want to make it easier to import secrets from a third-party place. But I'll just pause there for discussion and for people to digest this a little bit.
One question, this is Andy Manosky from the Vault team. One question is, I know that in the document there were discussions on sort of enhanced audit logging for Kubernetes secrets. And it seems like that regardless of whether there's going to be an external secret store or an internal secret store in Kubernetes, that there's a desire to sort of unify like basic security principles around like the API or especially within the audit log. Presumably, do we have an example of like what the schema would be for that audit log with regards to security events that be added?
Sorry, I didn't catch the last thing you said. An example of what?
An example of the schema for the security audit log for Kubernetes. Just one of the concerns that I have is that if Kubernetes is using an external secret store, it would be ideal that beyond simply time correlation, if there is some way to sort of correlate an event of like requesting a secret from that external secret store, so that if you're in some kind of like SIM solution, that you're able to introspect sort of the custody and chain of events in an easier fashion. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit difficult, given the nature of the external secret store's audit log, to be able to figure out sort of, did Kubernetes request the secret as a part of this interaction?
Asking Andy, please tell me if this is wrong, but you're saying, is there a way for us to correlate Kubernetes audit log activities with third-party secret store audit log activities? Is that right?
Yeah, but I guess more directly with the relation to Kubernetes, do we have an example of just the schema that Kubernetes intends on using for tracking security events, like within Kubernetes secrets itself before it even hits the external secret store? Because I feel like from, like, for example, within Vault, if there's work that probably needs to be done on whatever is the external secret stores end to make sure that they abide by a similar schema, or it's otherwise easier and more intelligible from, like, the SIM perspective. So just more of an example of how Kubernetes intends to do it.
So there's nothing security specific as far as audit logging. The audit logging is API centric. And so the log events that we would be producing would be the same for secret objects as for any other type of object. So they have it pulled up on the screen share right now, but at the metadata level, you get the user that made the request, the source, the timestamp, and then the details of the API request they made, but not the contents, either the contents they sent or the contents that were returned. Again, because all of these interactions are happening, they're triggered via the API and they're interacted with via the API, it's API logging. That is what we're producing.
Got it. Sounds good. Okay, take a look at this. Thank you.
So to talk about some of the things that we could pursue and some of the things that were proposed last year, one of the items proposed in the original doc that Greg had shared last year was, I'll just pull where it is, some sort of secrets API with secrets handling code that would abstract multiple external stores. And what I'm proposing now is that given the changes that we've had in the last several months, in the last 12 months, this might no longer make sense. It requires adding a lot of functionality into Kubernetes core, which doesn't necessarily need to be there. I haven't seen a lot of customers who are interested in having multiple different secret stores at once. And I just wanted to get feedback on, is this something we're still interested in pursuing specific to line item? That's something that we have other ways of addressing.
I would be in favor of working on integrating with secret stores that people are already using rather than continuing.
Barely hear you, Mike.
I would be in favor of, sorry, is this better?
Yes.
I would be in favor of working on integrations with secret stores that people are already using rather than rebuilding or enhancing Kubernetes secret functionality. It filled a gap in our user experience very early on, and I think there are other tools that handle secrets better than we can or will be able to in the foreseeable future.
Any other thoughts from anyone?
Yeah, I think the characteristics of the API, like being able to list everything, including all content across all namespaces, don't lend themselves to the type of auditability and access partitioning that you'd want to be a fundamental part of a secret integration. So I think if you did integrate or enhance the Kubernetes secret API to plug into some of these backend things, just the characteristics of the API would mean you would have to do things that you wouldn't want to do, like extract and decrypt and expose all secrets uniformly, and we'd be back in the same boat we're in today.
Sorry, can you explain that more? I didn't quite follow why integrating with a third-party secret store would mean that you'd have to expose all those secrets.
Because you can't break the functionality, the current functionality of the secrets API. And one of the things you can do with the secrets API is list watch all secrets across all namespaces. And so it'd be lovely if that pulled from an external secret store, I guess, but if the benefit that gives you is that those secrets are tightly encrypted and controlled and limited, but then the first thing you do is decrypt them all and publish them all.
Right. I'm sorry. I guess I wasn't thinking about the not knowing the current API. I wasn't thinking that that I was thinking it could be like a V2 API that sort of goes a different direction if that was the case.
That isn't the only way to integrate with third-party secret stores, though. That's one form of integration.
Oh, sure. There are lots of ways. I mean, one thing that could be done sort of easily and kind of generically is essentially like object mapping, right? Like, here's a key, give me the value, where that's stored not in Kubernetes, but is stored by the other solution. There's also envelope encryption, which is what the KMS provider does now, but where you could have that kind of enhanced to do like per key context or per key kind of derivation or something. But I think that there's likely to be, and I'm not a totally unbiased party here. For those who don't know me, I'm on the Vault team. But I think that there's likely to be interesting things that can be done if there could be kind of an alternate way to integrate, an alternate API or something that could be kind of more full-featured. I think that things like partitioning of secrets into specific namespaces, where that's not likely to be able to be possible with the current API, but would be really cool if it could be supported.
What are the deficiencies of the current Kubernetes credential provider? What if we invested in that? How would the user experience be affected?
What credential provider are you referring to?
The Kubernetes credential provider for Vault, or the credential backend?
Backends.
Oh, so you're talking about to use the Kubernetes service provider information to get or service principal information to get a Vault token?
Yeah. What would be an improvement made on the user experience of using that we can make in Kubernetes core?
A couple of things. So one is that I think, and it's somewhere in this document, I forget if it's up or down from here, but some of the new APIs that are currently in alpha that will allow kind of better granularity are planned to be incorporated into there. Yeah, pod identity and scope service count tokens. So there's a number of things. So we're working on, we have some kind of a very old and formerly closed source kind of helper that we are open sourcing and modernizing that will make it fairly trivial to get a token from a pod. So it basically does this workflow for you. So you can just say like, I want to have this as an init or sidecar container and run this binary, and the binary will say, okay, I'm in Kubernetes. I'm going to go get this information, authenticate, and get a Vault token and make it available to the application. If Kubernetes wanted to integrate more deeply with Vault, then what it could do is it could essentially, there's a couple of ways it could do it, but basically it could get a scope token to that pod, and that pod could either hold it transparently and kind of translate that into calls to Vault when secrets are requested, or it could provide that token directly to the user. Like as an example, just as one of the ways that this integration can happen, like Nomad, our own orchestration system, it will generate a token with appropriate policies for the job or for the pod in Kubernetes terms, and make that available and actually basically render it through some templating stuff and actually sort of like get secrets ready and dropped onto disk for a RAM disk for consumption. And so that's kind of the full-on integration, but there are different kind of stages. That doesn't have to be the only way that it happens. But I think the nice thing about Kubernetes sort of doing that or having this better granularity and then associating a Vault token with a pod, whether that's transparent to the application or not, is that some of our customers that are going to be using Vault Enterprise can take advantage of enterprise features that offer things like namespacing. So like kind of like sandbox vaults. So if you want to have different Kubernetes clusters, but have each cluster have its own namespace within Vault so that data can't leak between them, that's something that's possible. If you want to have kind of disparate keys that are encrypting different secrets, so you can ensure that only some, that a user that gets access to one key through Vault policy can solely read a subset of secrets. That's another thing that can happen. So like, I think there are a lot of really cool things that can be done with tight integration. But obviously a lot of those things are very kind of specific to Vault. And so that's kind of a trade-off, right? That's something that has to be figured out and decided upon.
So if I just take a step back, some of the changes that we've made, there are a couple that a user right now would have, they can optionally do application layer secrets encryption using ASGCM, ASCBC, or the secret box provider. They can also optionally use a KMS plugin There are KMS plugins for Google Cloud KMS, Azure Key Vault, AWS KMS, and there's one shortly being released for HashiCorp Vault. And then additionally for Vault, and I apologize for not including up here, you can have pods authenticate directly to Vault using Kubernetes service accounts. You can have any entity that has a Kubernetes service account authenticate directly to Vault. That's the Vault Kubernetes auth backend.
Right, absolutely. I'm sorry. I was just trying to
Yeah.
answer the question of how do you make it easier. That's all. Yes, these absolutely exist.
Just want to take a step back and say, like, here's what exists today.
Mhm.
If I take a step back, I'm not proposing we build a generic API that would talk to any backend, because I think that would be a lot of work for not a lot of payoff. This document sort of proposes, say, lots of little pieces of work, but at a high level, a couple of things. One is that we somehow have a way to externally mount or import secrets. So what I mean by that is I'm seeing a pattern where customers have a secret store that lives somewhere else. It may be Vault, it may be a custom on-prem thing. It may be a secret manager like AWS Secret Manager. And they want to batch import these into Kubernetes on a regular basis. So having a way of importing this into Kubernetes and having Kubernetes call back and say, has this thing changed? Let me update it. That's one piece that I'm proposing. The second piece that I'm proposing is something similar to sort of what Jeff was starting to talk about, which was having some sort of direct mapping between namespaces and like file paths and other services. An easy place to start this would be with Vault, but it doesn't have to be exclusively with Vault. The third major change that I'd be proposing is improving the default behavior for encryption of secrets in Kubernetes. So what I mean by that is, since 1.7 users have options, and since 1.10 they have a KMS plugin, but by default, secrets are still not encrypted at rest. That seems like a major miss. So I don't have an exact solution here, but moving something in that direction where we don't provide sort of a false sense of identity by using a local encryption key, but pushing towards having stronger security around that encryption would be what I'm proposing.
And Mike, can I ask a question? So in that on the page that's up right now, under 1.13, the encryption, which is deprecate the secrets encryption option, that what you were just talking about. My understanding is right now all of the so right now the keys that are used for encryption are actually unprotected in etcd, right?
No, the keys don't live in etcd; they live on disk.
Oh, the keys live on. Okay, so the keys live on disk, but they are themselves not encrypted.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even one thing to keep in mind, even if you move towards envelope encryption for those keys, the downside is still that anyone that then gets that, if you're using the same key for envelope encryption, anyone that gets that original key can get all the rest of the keys and decrypt all the secrets. Which is why it's kind of nice if there's an option for sort of like online decryption of values or online fetching of secrets, where the actual encryption decryption isn't happening with the key that's accessible locally. It's some entirely separate system.
Agreed.
So to be clear, the KMS plugin was a big part of enabling that. So that is a call out that can delegate to a decryption source externally. It doesn't have to be local. So that was the main goal of that plugin.
Okay, I thought from this doc that when you use one of those KMS providers, the only thing that it's actually encrypting is the kind of the master key within Kubernetes. Is that correct or no? I might have misread that.
It means that on boot, it has to be able to reach that to re-retrieve and decrypt the local key. So if that's unavailable or rejects a decryption request, then on boot it won't be accessible.
Sure, but the point is, then that local key is itself the encryption key for everything else.
No, it's per item actually.
Oh, it's per item. Okay.
Yes.
That's okay. That's what I was not. Like I said, I thought I might be misunderstanding it.
Nope.
So it's the per item key.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Great.
So one of the reasons that we actually can't default this on is because there is per deployment management of the encryption keys, right? So Kubernetes is an ecosystem of a bunch of different artifacts, and so the API server binary may support this option, but it is only one binary in potentially a HA cluster. managed by things outside of itself. And so, I mean, this is not uncommon. We've seen this for most of the features that we've worked on, right? We have a new authentication or authorization mechanism, and then we get it working and supported, and then the next step is to go to all of the setup tools and deployments and evangelize and assist getting them to make use of this feature. So is that what you're proposing?
That is what I'm proposing, correct.
Okay.
I realize is a lot of work.
Yep.
The two other items discussed and this item, any thoughts on if this is a good direction, if this is what people are sort of supporting?
When you say to easily import and sync, are external store mount, are you talking about mounting directly into pods, or are you talking about importing to the Kubernetes API?
What I've typically seen people do is import it to the Kubernetes API or to etcd. I'm not saying directly to pods, but I think that's something you would have to investigate a bit more.
The main interaction between secrets and pods is the secret projection volume. I would be interested in seeing somebody prototype a Vault CSI plugin. I think that might be useful. I'm not sure how difficult it would be to make a generic volume plugin that works with the EC2 key store and Vault and whatever else key stores exist. But just starting with a Vault CSI plugin, I think would be a good start if you want to get a very similar user experience from what exists with Kubernetes secrets today.
In the same vein, there could be a KMS CSI plugin.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like for a bunch of these things, including importing into the API and defining that mapping, those all feel like things that can be done through our plugin points right now. And perhaps a good way forward is to sort of start by building those for a specific key store solution, like Vault. And then from there, we might be able to sort of extract some standards or say, like, here's the best practices, or here's a reference implementation, maybe extract some common code. But a lot of that it feels like things that don't need to be in core Kubernetes necessarily.
Yeah, for the two ways that you can mount things into pods right now, there's flex volumes and CSI. Flex volumes are the only ones that are supported for inline pods. So if you had a pod spec that included a flex volume, CSI doesn't support that yet. I just linked to a proposal that is talking about how to add CSI support into pod specs. One of those mechanisms is likely to be the way we would allow injecting content directly into pods. And that the benefit of that is that the unencrypted content never passes through the API server to kubelet chain. Like, it's point to point from the thing on the kubelet that is talking to this secret source into the container. As far as like syncing secrets into the Kubernetes API, that could certainly be interesting. I think we would definitely want that to be just an external project that used client Go to talk to the Kubernetes API. With the understanding that whatever syncs stuff into the Kubernetes secrets API is basically treating the secrets API as a flat trust domain. Like, all of those secrets are going to have the same level of visibility to those top level controllers that can list watch all objects.
KMS plugin was released in 1.10. Is it something that given that we've seen uptake from by building plugins for several different providers, Google Cloud KMS, Azure Key Vault, AWS KMS, HashiCorp Vault, is it something that we're looking to move towards to beta imminently?
I think if we have multiple implementations, and it would be good to get feedback from those. I haven't heard a lot of feedback, either positive or negative, but if we are able to solicit feedback from the people who have actually built them, and we have implementations against several varieties of providers, then I would anticipate that could be promoted.
Makes sense.
I remember this the KMS plugin, not the individual implementations, but the actual plugin mechanism not having an owner. Is that still the case? I think it is, yeah. So
yeah, my understanding of the Oracle built Vault KMS provider is that they submitted it as a PR. It was closed because they were told that it would have to go over gRPC. And they have a fork in which they've built and merged it. The one right there, Oracle number 4, right above that. So I don't really know what the status of this is.
do they intend to implement a gRPC-based plugin?
I honestly don't know. I was hoping that someone would actually know more about the status of it than me. Since they said, yeah, we're going to have something like that. So maybe they plan to take this, wrap it in gRPC, and then submit that. That might be what KK was talking about in the other issue, the standalone version.
I don't personally know the current status. I just remember that we were looking for ownership for the actual plugin mechanism. I think that all the individual integrations had owners, but the reason that these things sometimes flounder is somebody works on a feature for a quarter or two and it goes slow, and they move on to other things. So it'd be good to have somebody step up and own that feature and move it to completion.
I think that's something we might be able to own eventually, not right at this moment. We're actually trying to get someone on board to kind of have time dedicated to Kubernetes and Vault integration. So I think if we can get someone on board and get them spun up, then I think that's something that we could take on as well. But I obviously, since Oracle's done the work, if they actually are able to get this across the finish line, that would be great.
Yeah, you'll have to sync with KK about that. As far as, have you guys already developed a sidecar for secret management and projection into pods?
No, we haven't. So that's something that's on our radar. In fact, I'll probably be taking care of that at some point. So right now we're working on, I mentioned this sort of Vault agent that we're working on to do the automatic authentication. So the way that we sort of envision that working is that essentially developing a container that can be used as either an init container, a sidecar, or both, depending on the mode in which it's run. So, an init container can kind of provide a token and drop it somewhere on a file system, or if you want to run it as a sidecar to kind of continually grab new tokens, or bundle it with our program console template, which basically templates out secrets onto a data source somewhere, then that would be that's something that we're looking at. So I think that's something that we're going to provide at some point. I think I hadn't really heard of CSI before this. I think that looks like a really interesting way potentially to provide this this functionality. So rather than us sort of write out stuff onto a template, it might be interesting if we could build such a container as a CSI service plugin, container pod, whatever the right terminology would be for CSI, and then and see if that would be possible to make that a kind of a codified way of getting secrets to containers automatically without having to have them interact with the vault directly.
I imagine the actual implementation is going to be very similar between a
Yeah,
site.
probably. So maybe we'll end up doing both so that we can kind of help out the people that don't have a newer version of Kubernetes and then help out those that do.
Right. The invocation will be different and the user experience will be a slightly different. So, but it'd be good to get some feedback on CSI. It's in early stages right now. So
yeah. So this is very much. I mean, the reason I don't want to commit to work right now is because we've sort of been looking at this roadmap and other things that are out there in the community between Kubernetes and Vault. For instance, someone in the community has proposed and coded a Kubernetes secrets plugin for Vault so that Vault can generate account credentials and so on for Kubernetes. So we have a lot of things we're trying to juggle right now because we want to support Kubernetes really well. And we are going to actively be trying to find someone and hire someone to sort of take on that as part of their explicit job to work on all these various integration points. So my hope is that at some point we can say, yes, we can definitely do that. We just can't say that right now.
So to sort of summarize what I'm hearing, because I think there's still a lot of digesting of what's being proposed, I'm happy to send an email to SIG Auth saying, here's the doc that was discussed. Please review and comment. The top level proposals are some way of externally storing or mounting secrets, some sort of external store auth integration piece, and having a better default. None of these are committed. They're all just under discussion. And separately, specifically the Kubernetes plugin, it sounds like we're looking for an owner in order to take that to beta in the next few releases. Is that right?
Sorry, you mean the Vault plugin, the Vault KMS plugin?
Specifically the KMS plugin, the actual
right
in Kubernetes.
Right. I can let me take a task to try to sync up with KK on that and find out what the status is.
It's not even that part, Jeff. It's the Vault piece has to talk to a plugin in core.
The extension point in Kubernetes, the KMS extension point.
Plugin mechanism.
Yeah, and that is currently in alpha.
Oh, the plugin mechanism is in alpha.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Sorry about that. I'm newer to the Kubernetes side of things, so there's a lot that I still don't know in terms of terminology and status. Sorry about that.
It's all good. So specifically that, it sounds like, Jordan, we're saying we're looking for an owner for that. Is that right?
Yes, and feedback from the people who have been using it in its current state. Yep.
Correct. Great. Is there anything else about secrets or Vault, given that we have the HashiCorp team here, that we should be discussing?
Mike, had you had a chance to sync up with them around the scoped audience bound or audience scoped stuff you'd been working through, or you run that by them at all?
Yeah, I have. I talked with them about it a really long time ago. I don't know if they remember.
Yeah, it's definitely on our radar. I talked to Maya and Seth Vargo about this, and the feeling was, while it's an alpha, we didn't want to take that on because we have a severe lack of capacity and kind of a big crunch right now in terms of manpower. We are hiring more people, as I said, so that will hopefully help alleviate that. So we just have a severe capacity problem right now, and so since it's in alpha, we were planning on waiting until it's not in alpha to actually get implemented. But it is definitely on our radar. We are going to support it.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I was more interested just in the kind of flow and the capabilities it would be providing, and ideally getting eyes on at least the approach, making sure that would.
I'd be happy to. And I'm sure Brian would be happy to sync up with you offline about that, just to talk about that in more detail.
Sure.
Okay, great.
The current credential backend works by sending the service account token, that's the secret projection, to the Vault, and then Vault does the token review. So all we have to do is use a audience-bound JOT, and Vault has to submit its expected audience. And I think it should be a very small change on Vault's side since they're already basically there.
Okay, yeah, I don't think we had looked at like exactly what I'd seen the proposal. I saw a GitHub issue for like the proposal, but I didn't fully grok the exact changes coming from the Kubernetes side. If it's really just like parsing a JOT and then sending something back, that's totally simple. I figured from the scope service cat, I wasn't sure if that was talking about like OAuth 2 scopes, that kind of thing, like an OIDC type scoping thing, or if that was just kind of an internal kind of mechanism.
No, and an audience restriction.
Okay, yeah, that's easy.
And Mike, the audience restriction, that's still in alpha right now, the audience bound tokens?
Yep.
Yeah.
And is it beta for 112? Is that a goal right now?
That's the goal.
Okay, awesome.
Actually, let me ask a question real quick, if you don't mind. If we're getting a JOT and we're checking the audience, do we still need to send back to the token review API?
You don't, but you don't even have to check the audience if you do. So you would submit an audience to the token review API, and we could check the audience for you. In that case, the token is just opaque to you, so you don't even have to parse it.
That's interesting.
You could use you could do the validation yourself, but we do some extra checks, like we create pod bindings. So if this was provisioned for a pod, the token is no longer valid after the pod is deleted.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's good. No, then we should continue to do that. The reason I was asking is in 0.10.4, which is the next release of Vault, we're going to have a kind of a generic JOT and OIDC auth mechanism. And so what I was wondering is like if it's basically now just using more of the JOT stuff, then we might just natively support that without even needing to have something Kubernetes specific. But it sounds like what the token review API does is very valuable in terms of making sure that lifetimes are properly handled. So we should continue to do that. There's
benefit there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No problem then. Then we'll keep that alive. That's actually, to be perfectly honest, that's been happening with a lot of our providers. We have a lot of plugins now that basically consume JOTs, but then call kind of custom APIs to do extra validation, just because it makes sense. So what we're introducing is basically a plugin for the rest of the cases that don't need a custom API to call back into.
Yep.
But yeah, cool.
So just to go back up to the top of the 112 list, the first item there, all of the work around secrets has actually been done. That was done back in 1.7, I think. There is one item left around nodes not being able to label themselves, but that's not secret specific. So that's fine. Right now, a node cannot list all secrets. They can only get the secrets related to the workloads scheduled on them, and that's been true since 1.7 for deployments that use the node restriction and node authorizer. The second item, I'm not really sure what this is proposing. RBAC will actually let you authorize individual secrets. It's more a question of whether the controller accessing those secrets is willing to fetch individual secrets, or if it kind of goes the easy, let me list and watch everything and keep a local store, which is what most controllers do. But they don't have to, and evidence of that is the kubelet, right? The kubelet doesn't list watch all secrets. It watches the secrets related just to its own workloads. So it's already possible to do this. It's not trivial, but I don't know that it's going to be trivial.
Yeah, I copied this over from the previous year's doc.
Yep.
So maybe this is not a top priority to your point, in the sense that we could do this, but it would be quite hard and not really have that much impact.
Yeah, I will note that one change that happened in 1.11 is that when you watch an individual secret, the name of that secret is available to the authorizer. And so previously, even if you watched individual secret, you would still have to be authorized to watch all secrets. But as of 1.11, you can watch an individual secret and just be authorized to watch that one. So that is a new capability in 1.11 that I know the responsiveness issue was an issue for some controllers. They wanted to be aware right away when a secret changed. And so as of 1.11, you can watch individual items and be authorized to watch individual items.
So there might not be a specific ask here.
Yeah, so I don't anticipate any changes in 112 around this specifically.
Okay. I'll update that when I have a few more minutes. All right. Jordan, Mike, Tim, is there anything else that you all wanted to discuss today?
Thank you for the presentation.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry again for all the confusion. I'm glad we were able to make this happen anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And it turns out it took a good amount of time, so having it on a day by itself was probably good anyway.